we're about 2 minutes out. Thanks, everybody.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today for such an important announcement. Your presence speaks volumes about your commitment to addressing one of the most devastating challenges facing our Commonwealth, the opioid epidemic. The toll this crisis has taken on our communities is staggering. Families have been torn apart, lives have been lost, and hope has been stolen from far too many. But amidst this devastation, there are leaders who refuse to back down, who show up every day to fight for change. One of those leaders is Kentucky Attorney General Russell Coleman. General Coleman, alongside his exceptional team, Deputy Attorney General Rob Duncan, Chris Evans, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, as well as Justin Clark, Civil Chief, Commissioner Chris Lewis, Division of Consumer and Senior Protection, and Denise Durbin, Special Counsel, have all been at the forefront of this battle. They have spearheaded the fight against the devastating drug crisis. They have championed efforts to bring critical resources to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and they have supported local solutions in the communities hit hardest by this epidemic. And finally, they've demonstrated tireless commitment to saving lives and restoring hope. I've had the privilege of knowing General Coleman for many years. Our shared background in law enforcement, his with the FBI and mine with the Kentucky State Police, has fostered a deep mutual respect. His dedication to public service extends beyond our state borders, having also served our country in the military. It is an honor to stand alongside someone who so deeply understands the weight of responsibility and the power of steadfast leadership. I'd also like to acknowledge the other distinguished guests here today, individuals who share our mission to improve the health and safety of our communities. Could all of our elected officials please stand and be recognized? And I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the Life Learning Center staff and my board of directors. Could you all also please stand for just a moment? When the opportunity arose to host this event at Life Learning Center, we absolutely did not hesitate. At LLC, we believe in facing problems head on because behind every statistic is a real person, someone's child, a sibling, or a parent whose life is worth fighting for. Righting the wrongs of the past and addressing the root cause of these issues isn't just important, it's essential if we want to avoid repeating cycles of pain and loss. At Life Learning Center, our mission is clear. Everyone deserves the opportunity to create a new life for themselves and their families. But without the dedication of leaders like Attorney General Coleman, our work would be far more difficult. His relentless efforts have allowed us to empower individuals battling poverty, unemployment, and hopelessness to choose a new path. As Life Learning Center continues to expand into Moorhead and Somerset and Bowling Green, Attorney General Coleman has been a steadfast advocate for our efforts in fair chance employment, ensuring that marginalized individuals have the opportunity to re-enter the workforce and rebuild their lives with dignity and purpose. General Coleman's unwavering dedication reminds me of the words in 1 John 3:18. Let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. His actions speak louder than any words, and his truth is evident in the lives he's impacting across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Let this be a charge to all of us today to live out our shared mission and to make a difference in our communities. And let us remain tireless in our commitment to this community, especially during this ongoing public health crisis. It is such my honor to introduce to you a leader, a colleague, and a steadfast advocate for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, Attorney General Russell Coleman.
Thank you, Alicia, both for hosting us here and for your incredible work and the work of the Life Learning Center. Work to promote long-term recovery. And thank you for your many fine years of service to this Commonwealth, Major Edgington. I hope everyone here, and I'm looking out at so many community leaders with skin in the game here at the Life Learning Center. You know how fortunate we are to have her talent at the helm here. You know how talented her team is, those that we honored just a moment ago. So I'm so grateful for her leadership and the role of Life Learning Center in impacting and pushing back and mitigating in this crisis here in Covington, and soon to be down the road in Somerset and Bowling Green and in Moorhead. Across the Commonwealth, this model is being replicated, and I couldn't be more excited about that and the impact it's going to have far from the Northern Kentucky region. Now, speaking of this region, I don't need to describe, and I'd be presumptuous to describe to you the impact of this crisis. I say that because there's probably no one in this room, no one viewing this at home, who hasn't been impacted to some degree, who hasn't had an empty seat at a kitchen table, an empty pew next to them, or seen an expectation of a child, the future of a child torn away, stolen by this scourge. But this region has set an extraordinary example of collaboration to fight this crisis. To give you one example, leaders in this region came together uniquely to design your own drug control policy office right here in Boone, Kenton, and Campbell to deal with the unique challenges in your geographic area. You did this on your own. And not only benefited Northern Kentucky, but all of the surrounding areas and across the river as well. The gold standard for collaboration in our Commonwealth, the gold standard is here in Northern Kentucky. That's why I wanted to come to Northern Kentucky today and make this announcement. I ran for this job to get back in the fight, to join many of you in pushing back on this crisis. That means holding all those accountable who make these deadly drugs accessible. Whether they're on the corner, whether they wear a white coat, or whether they sit in a corporate boardroom. That means investing in treatment. That means supporting you in enforcement and investing especially in prevention, getting ahead of boom, as we would say in law enforcement parlance, being proactive. That also means securing our southern border from the porous nature of what we find now, protecting our young people from the cartels and our foreign adversaries. It means zealously collaborating with outstanding local leaders, like many of those sitting, staring at me right now. A room full of those who have demonstrated, not only in words, but in deeds, that they give a damn. And I'm honored to be standing before so many of them. Now these are all ways of pushing back against the darkness that is growing closer. Feels like it's creeping closer. You know, I'm marked just one full year into my term, and I can already say without any hesitation that what I'm speaking about at this podium, our collaboration, will be the most significant thing I will do in my time as Attorney General. So I'm proud to make a major announcement today, another milestone in that multi-battle front that we're facing. I'm here to announce a settlement with the Kroger Company totaling $110 million for its role in this devastating drug crisis. This morning, I'd like to discuss this extraordinary milestone in our recovery efforts. I want to recognize the leadership of county attorneys who have fought for so long to get us here, and thank the team that I truly believe has and will save lives in our Commonwealth. You know, building on the work of county attorneys and others in this room, our office went out on its own in February of last year and filed a lawsuit against the Kroger Company. We didn't take this decision lightly. Kroger has created a public image of trust, not only in this region, but across the Commonwealth. I grew up shopping at Kroger. I grew up relying upon Kroger to feed my family in West Kentucky. But the facts, as we allege in our lawsuit, and I would direct you to our complaint, showed a very different story altogether. Kroger and its more than 100 pharmacies across Kentucky was responsible for roughly 444 million opioid doses coming into our Commonwealth over the 13-year period in question. That's more than 100 opioid doses for every man, every woman, and every one of our kids in Kentucky. It amounts to 11% of all opioids distributed in the Commonwealth during that period. But most shocking, it's not just a numbers game. There are certainly legitimate need for some of these medications. But most shockingly, there was no serious system in place, no internal serious system in place in Kroger to track or report suspicious activities. None. No trainings for staff, no guidelines to prevent abuse. This massive grocery chain that asked for our trust and our business allowed the fire of addiction to spread across the Commonwealth, leaving pain and leaving so much brokenness in its aftermath. We didn't seek this lawsuit for headlines. We didn't seek it for attention. We did it because of the most unthinkable levels of harm brought upon our Commonwealth by this conduct. We launched this lawsuit because for over a decade, Kroger was part of the problem that plagued our Commonwealth. Today, with $110 million invested in recovery efforts across Kentucky, Kroger has agreed to become part of the solution. We get to begin writing our next chapter now. According to the arrangement created in Kentucky law by our General Assembly, half of these funds, half of the $110 million, will be transferred directly to cities and counties, to municipalities through a predetermined formula for their own programming, given to those that know best how to spend these dollars. To the judges I see that know their communities so well, to the mayors that know how to spend this money to be impactful. It's a privilege to be joined by so many of these local leaders, and I want to thank you all. I won't go down the row, but I want to thank you all, from prosecutors to judges to mayors to county attorneys. What you do is at the most granular level oftentimes. What you do is not always sexy, it's not always appreciated. What you do is the most impactful work of government, and I'm grateful for it. These incredible public servants know the needs of their communities, and they will soon have additional resources to invest in these programs to save lives. Now, the other half of these settlement dollars, as you may know, will be entrusted to the stewardship of the Kentucky Opioid Advisory Commission under the leadership of our colleague, Executive Director Chris Evans. This commission This commission really is a spark of hope in this darkness of addiction. Last year, the commission approved more than $12 million to fund 51 Kentucky organizations for prevention, for treatment and recovery programs. This is real money doing real good across this Commonwealth. For instance, our host today, this incredible facility, Life Learning Center, was awarded nearly $500,000, $500,000 grant for a cutting-edge technology system to track real-time data, support, and accountability. Because in this environment, we can't always rely on anecdote. We have to rely on metrics and data, as Alicia and I discussed earlier. And this is a system that is going to give us this information. And I will tell you, which will be exciting for this community to demonstrate just how impactful these interventions have been, not only here, but as Alicia just mentioned, we're going to see these across Kentucky. For instance, I've had the opportunity to visit other than Life Learning Center, whether it's in Somerset with Volunteers of America, whether it is an extraordinary facility in Lexington that the Perez family runs, DV8 Kitchen that focuses on getting folks back to work who have previously been incarcerated, or whether it is sitting with a group of youth at YMCA in programs, anti-violence programs in Louisville. And these programs are curated to, this is not a one-size-fits-all. These programs are curated to the communities and the counties in which they serve. It's inspiring to see these programs in action. And I would encourage you to please join me in thanking those in this room that spend, from the first moment they get up in the morning to the last thing they think about at night, spend their days seeking to mitigate this crisis and save lives. Now, not to be too parochial, but close to my heart, the commission also approved a $3.6 million ask of mine to fund the first time we have ever stood up a statewide prevention effort focused on name, image, and likeness, on using this to go to where young people are. It's known as a Better Without It campaign. Now, it's some of you may have first heard of this or seen this at the UK U of L game just a couple weeks ago. You know, it's hard to imagine a bigger stage to roll this out for Kentuckians than at Rupp Arena. We look forward to sharing more about this youth-centered, technology-centric program in the weeks and months ahead. We're going to go to where these young people are, from the ages starting really focused on 13 to 26, and try to get that positive message out there. We have seen it work in other places. The data demonstrates that, and I could not be more excited about deploying this here in the Commonwealth, and grateful to the Commission for funding it. Now, too often with major announcements like this one, the people who did the real work are nowhere near the podium. Oftentimes, officers, detectives, prosecutors, they're around the back corners of the room, while folks like me have the privilege of talking about the work that other people do. And I wanted today, though, to be different. These settlement dollars are going to have a massive impact on Kentucky. So I want to recognize the people who are the driving force in bringing this money home to our Commonwealth to use it for good. Behind me, I'd like to thank Kentucky's Deputy Attorney General, your former United States Attorney for this district, Rob Duncan, our Civil Chief Justin Clark, and our Division Chief for Consumer and Senior Protection, Chris Lewis. These are talented folks with a fire in their belly for having an impact. I want to thank them for their late nights, for their long weekends, for the many months they have invested in getting this outcome. Our Commonwealth could not have asked for better advocates or for better representation. You don't have to take my word for it, though. Before we filed our lawsuit, we had the opportunity to join the multi-state effort against Kroger. Now, anyone who follows our office knows that just as Kentucky sheriffs say, and as no sheriff stands alone, it is very rare that an AG stands alone in litigation like this. We're typically acting with many times dozens of attorneys general in litigation like this from across the country. In the opioid litigation, it is a bipartisan effort of ours and Dee's. So it is an anomaly for us to step out on our own. This case, though, was different. if we would have joined the multi-state settlement, if we had been essentially a free rider, as it oftentimes in those matters, Kentucky would have brought home close to $50 million. No state in the country, though, no state in this nation has been as impacted as our Commonwealth. And given this impact, given the widespread presence, the 11% distribution number from Kroger, I wasn't willing to allow states like California and New York to get the larger payouts at Kentucky's expense. For you see, in this multi-state effort, there's a formula, and it is population-based. So Kentucky, despite the harm, would have only received $50 million as opposed to these other states. So we made a decision to file our own lawsuit, and because of the incredible work of the legal team behind me, we're able to deliver nearly double, again, less than $50 million if we had been in the multi-state. We'll be bringing home $110 million for these programs. So on behalf of all the Kentuckians who will benefit, I want to thank Rob, Justin, and Chris for their outstanding public service, for outstanding work. So I'm going to turn this over to my friend, someone who has a fire in the belly, the truly outstanding lawman, your former United States Attorney and my Deputy Attorney General, Rob Duncan.
Thank you, General. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by emphasizing a point that General Coleman made about our lawsuit versus the multi-state settlement. Last fall, Kroger made an agreement with 30 states totaling about $104 billion. Now, that's a big number until it's parsed out to every state, county, city, Native American tribe, and other entities that are involved. For instance, North Carolina received around $40 million. So did Illinois. The entire state of California was to receive $122 million. The Attorney General made a decision early on that Kentucky was not going to get anywhere near what we deserved out of the deal in the multi-state settlement. So in the best interest of the Commonwealth and the families that we fight for, we filed our own lawsuit that led to today's $110 million settlement. The numbers alone vindicate that decision. Now, these large settlements don't happen easily or happen overnight. And as Attorney General Coleman referenced, it takes months of complex civil litigation balancing massive equities. It takes many hands to dot every I and to cross every T. And I couldn't have asked for a better team than this one. It was a true privilege to get to work alongside Justin and Chris and the entire team day in and day out in moving this case forward. And at the end, Kentucky will receive the maximum recovery possible. That means more resources will be available in communities across the Commonwealth to support the organizations, countless organizations, that are doing vital work in this space. And on a personal note, as someone who grew up in Martin County and Inez, a community that has been devastated by the opioid crisis, as someone who has spent a career prosecuting drug traffickers, opioid traffickers, and other drug dealers, as the former United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky, which includes Northern Kentucky, I could not be more pleased with the outcome that has helped save lives from addiction. It was an honor to be part of the team. Thank you.
With this litigation concluding, now the hard work of implementing the programming, the hard work of taking these dollars and appropriately investing begins. And I can think of no one better equipped to lead our commission, to steward these dollars forward, than the gentleman who previously served as the acting administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration, gentleman who previously ran all operations for DEA globally. Someone who we affectionately refer to as our own Captain America. Hollywood can have theirs. We have our own. It's a privilege to bring up to the podium Director Chris Evans.
make sure that you understand that thanks to the work that's being done in places like the Life Learning Center, lives have been saved, families are being restored, and that is why we will continue our work towards efforts like the announcement today. At the Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission, we're putting a lot of work into how these dollars will be invested. And if you're not familiar with the commission, you should understand it's a collaborative effort. It involves people from across the Commonwealth, including those in the front lines of addiction and those who have experienced loss as a result. 2024 was a productive year for the commission. As the General said, we awarded $12 million to over 50 organizations, and we used those funds to create programming and support efforts to provide prevention education, opportunities for youth, and assist communities with their work to help strengthen families. I also want you to know that we're continuing to support Kentucky, and we're looking forward to working forward in 2025. In December, we opened applications for another round of funding through January 17th, and we are accepting applications in 2 categories: prevention and treatment and recovery support. We know there are places like the Life Learning Center that can translate the settlement dollars into life-changing opportunities. We are proud partners with others in this mission, and I am humbled to do this work. Thank you very much for your time.
Before I take your questions, I want to pause for a moment and speak directly to those who have lost a loved one to addiction. More importantly, and before I'm the Attorney General, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. I know that no amount of money is equal to the pain of your loss. But I know this: I take the weight of these resources seriously. Those behind me take the weight of these resources seriously. This is blood money purchased by the lives of your loved ones. That's not my term. That term comes from those who have lost loved ones, but it is apt, and it is one I reuse because it reminds us of the seriousness of being a steward of these dollars. Those of us who view the world through a lens of faith know that stewardship is not just a secular word. Stewardship brings with it a connotation, not only of responsibility, it brings with it a mandate to grow those talents. It brings with it a mandate to grow those resources and be as impactful as possible. There is a seriousness to being a steward that every member of this team recognizes. We pledge to be good stewards and use these resources so that other families don't have to share in the pain of those that have endured loss. That's our mission. And with these resources, with the team that you've seen behind me and those that I'm privileged to serve with in our counties and our Commonwealth Attorney's offices and the Office of the Attorney General, we will use these to be impactful. Thank you again for hosting us, Alicia. There is a reason we're standing here, not only to be in Northern Kentucky, this gold standard of collaboration, but to stand in a facility that is making an impact, to stand in a facility to demonstrate that there is a cause for optimism, that these dollars, if invested the right way, will save and will change lives. It's important that we're making this announcement where we're standing. And so you always are extraordinary hosts, so thank you, ma'am, and thank you for your leadership. And with that, I'll take a few questions if you may have them, ma'am.
Yep. Did the lawsuit at all, the settlement, did that address changes in monitoring compliance or at pharmacies or at Kroger? Like, what's going to change to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again?
So for one, and I focused on this in my remarks, the lack of an internal monitoring system, that is not the case now. That has been changed within Kroger. In terms of injunctive relief, I'll let my colleagues want to speak to that in terms of compliance or injunctive relief going forward. Yeah, Chris.
In terms of injunctive relief, our settlement latches on to the multi-state settlement, which had very robust injunctive relief in it. It requires monitoring, it requires reporting, it requires all of those things to be in place and to operate under that suspicious order monitoring system that's already there. So those terms within the larger multi-state settlement were incorporated into ours.
You
So
said Kroger became a partner in this. Are they here today?
First, before I address your question, the complexity you're seeing, the intersection between the multi-state and our individual litigation, I think that answer alone is a peek behind the curtain of just how complex this is. This is essentially in addition to the multi-state. So we benefit from those injunctive terms, but also financially Kentucky benefits more than if we rode along. And I'm gonna get back to your question.
And just to clarify then, I believe you called it an internal monitoring system?
Suspicious order monitoring system.
Okay,
And that's actually required by federal statute now.
right, and so there is gonna be like an external form of monitoring what happens at these folks who like distribute these.
That is
products.
part of the multi-state settlement, and
Okay,
so
thank you.
Kroger will have that obligation nationwide.
Sir, let me
And
get back to
yes,
you.
I'm just curious if Kroger is here today, and you said they're a partner in this. Is there anybody from Kroger here?
$110 million is a significant indicator. $110 million, they don't need to be sitting in that chair for me to have those resources to provide to cities, counties. So the proof is in the pudding in terms of what resulted in the settlement.
I just thought they might want to, if they're a partner, they might want to say something that would, show that they're, helping rather than being required to be monitored. I mean, what do you make of that, part of that? If they're required, that's a little different than doing something on their own.
I appreciate the nature of the question. I am pleased with $110 million worth of resources that we're bringing back to the Commonwealth to mitigate the harm. Built upon the foundation of when we say injunctive relief, these are requirements to mitigate, requirements to monitor. So the proof is in the pudding. I'll revert to that. Appreciate the question.
General, two quick questions. One, can you offer any more specifics about, I mean, I can go into the lawsuit, but just for the cameras, can you offer any more specifics about your original allegations against Kroger and their wrongdoing? I know you talked about the lack of a monitoring system and they distributed so many of these pills. Is there anything else you can say? And then secondly, you talk about the Life Learning Center. It is possible at this point through the commission and through maybe the city or city funds that the Life Learning Center, among other organizations, could get some of this money back.
But the Life Learning Center already is a beneficiary of a $500,000 grant. With leadership like behind my shoulder here and the expansion of what Life Learning Center is doing in communities in West Kentucky and throughout the East, it wouldn't shock me at all if they'll be the beneficiary in the future. I certainly anticipate they'll be coming before the commission. That's a decision left up to the commission, but they're the leader of the Life Learning Center is no shrinking violet for seeking resources when she needs them, and this is a pool of resources. In terms of the lawsuit itself, and I want my colleagues to jump up and join me here, I reiterate the high points during my remarks in chief. We had an entity that many of us deeply respected, a business entity, that at the end of the day was distributing 11% of all opioids during this period in time when we were on fire with overdose death. They were the second largest distributor of opioids in our Commonwealth with no internal monitoring system for catching or mitigating internally this threat for a company with its size and scale to ignore counsel, to step forward and create that process. That is one of the reasons we stepped out on our own. That is one of the reasons we took the risk of stepping out on our own, because of the damage done, because of the scale of Kroger as a distributor of these opioids without that internal monitoring system. As a natural result of that, during that period of time, there were no suspicious attempts to purchase at Kroger if you relied on Kroger's internal documents, internal information, right? So there was no system. During that period of time, there were no suspicious attempts per Kroger. That defies logic, defies common sense, and it's why we're standing here today.
Were you surprised at how quickly, I mean, you filed your standalone lawsuit just last year and you've got the settlement now. Was Kroger just ready to make a settlement, or some of these settlements have taken 5-10 years to get through, like Purdue and some of these others. Why do you think this happened so quickly?
We aggressively pursued Kroger with incredibly talented lawyers, and the facts are what they are.
Mr. Coleman, I just want to ask you, do you have an idea what municipalities will receive funding? Can you share that with us at this point?
Well, funding through there are cities and counties virtually, and I would refer you to Kentucky League of Cities and KCO for those lists. But again, the process, and this is as designed by the General Assembly, is bifurcated. There is a formula by which these dollars will go through the formula and distribute to counties and cities from west to east Kentucky. Will receive a portion of the resources. The other 50% will go through the commission, and the commission, as the director indicated, tranche by tranche, including our prevention effort, will hear pitches, will consider grant requests, and then distribute those based upon merit. So I would encourage you for that specific list, which is broad and deep in terms of who has been the recipient since this program has been initiated a couple of years ago. I'd refer you to KCO and KLC.
Will they apply for that, or how's that work?
So the formula dollars are automatic. That is a standard formula that comes from outside litigation, from the multi-state effort. That the money goes into a machine, and it's based upon population, based upon impact, based upon size. Jefferson County, of course, Louisville received significantly more than Logan County, for instance. But correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially every county will receive some resources.
Every county will receive some resources, and municipalities will receive it based on population. And if you'll look at the consent judgment that was filed this morning, that'll be attached to the press release. There is an exhibit that will list out those specific counties and municipalities.
Will there be any
This is the last question.
any contingency on, is there any specifics on what they need to spend it on, or is it just?
That's actually covered within statute. If you look at the two statutes that were passed by the legislature, it's KRS 291 and 293, thank you. There is a list within that on what approved spending is to qualify as abatement under these settlements.
And folks, we do have a schedule to keep. We're gonna take a tour briefly, so I'm gonna let the general speak to some of our VIPs that came here today. And if you wanna follow me, we'll start some B-roll opportunities.
Well, so the overarching construct of that statute is for opioid mitigation. There are details contained within the statute, but opioid mitigation was the thrust of what the legislature directed us to spend those dollars on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.